Hi! Today we're going to cover 5 of the more important goals for your writing, which I call the 5 C's of good writing. If you would like to review these slides more carefully after the video, you'll find a link to the slides on our course schedule. As usual, please feel free to ask any questions you have about this material when we are next together in class. The 5 C's are not rules per se, but instead are guiding principles that you should be able to apply to most writing tasks in or out of college. They are clarity, being clear, coherence, being focused, cohesion, sometimes called flow, concision, being direct and to the point, and correctness, following the technical rules for the genre and meeting the expectations of your audience. We'll start with clarity. While many students become obsessed with earning the highest score on a paper, this often obscures the most important feature of writing. It is meant to convey an idea. The act of getting an idea out of your head, onto a page, and then into someone else's head is surprisingly difficult. If you picture a triangle, and the reader ends up imagining a hexagon, the writing task has failed, no matter how eloquent your language or how correct your comma use. American writing styles have often been described as reader-centered. In American writing style, we tend to believe it is the writer's job to be clear, while the reader should be able to relax and float through the essay without much effort. This leads to a lot of repetition and guiding phrases to make the reader's life easier. Therefore, it should be as easy as possible for your readers to do things like understand everything you say, read quickly without becoming lost or confused, identify the topic or the thesis of the writing, identify the topic or purpose of each individual paragraph, know the stance or opinion of the author, distinguish the ideas of the author from the ideas of the sources they are using, and to be able to summarize the text accurately after reading. And remember, the reader should be able to do these things easily, and it's our job as the writer to prepare them for success. There are some simple steps that you can take to improve your clarity. However, these often run contrary to the first impulse of students. Many students believe that they'll earn high marks and impress their teachers with elaborate, flowery sentences full of $10 words with 18 syllables each. However, in the real world, these windy sentences full of complex and inaccurate words are more likely to confuse the readers than they are to impress them. Instead, you can improve your clarity by using simple and direct sentences, including clear subjects and active verbs, using precise, consistent language and defining any new terms you use, organizing your essays effectively and intentionally, using transitions and overviews to guide the reader through the essay, and summarizing and restating your key points. The second of the 5 C's is coherence, also called focus or unity. This is the idea that every level of the essay adds up to something. If the reader steps back and looks at a sentence, a paragraph, a section, or even the whole essay, they should be able to easily summarize what it was all about. The main idea or purpose of each section or paragraph should be different than that of other sections or paragraphs, and that point or purpose should not be muddled or unclear. In this presentation, we'll mostly focus on 3 types of incoherent paragraphs, which I call wandering paragraphs, split paragraphs, and straggler sentences. Please bear with me as I read the following paragraph. As we read, notice how the writer shifts from topic to topic. Sainer, Wisconsin is the snowmobile capital of the world. The buzzing of snowmobile engines fills the air, and their tank-like tracks crisscross the snow. The snow reminds me of Mom's mashed potatoes, covered with furrows I would draw with my fork. Her mashed potatoes usually make me sick. That's why I play with them. I like to make a hole in the middle of my potatoes and fill it with melted butter. This behavior has been the subject of long conversations between me and my therapist. Notice that the ideas in the paragraph are somewhat related. We can understand how the writer got from point to point. However, if we take a big step back and ask the question, what is this paragraph about? Can you answer that question? Is it a paragraph about snow, about mashed potatoes, about therapy, or what? A less severe but still problematic issue is a split paragraph, in which two or more ideas are fighting for space. In this paragraph, notice how the writer begins with one planar topic, then shifts to a more specific topic mid-paragraph. There are several wilderness areas in Arizona to explore. Clear Creek Wilderness offers fishing and swimming. Sycamore Canyon offers the best views. Strawberry Crater is the most remote. At Strawberry Crater, you can find complete solitude. The views from the rim of the crater offer a spectacular panorama of the Painted Desert to the east. You can access Strawberry Crater by Highway 192 or through the Wapaki Monument. Although the two ideas are clearly related, the writer misleads us a bit. By beginning with the line several wilderness areas, and then beginning to list them, the writer indicates we'll continue with this pattern all the way through the paragraph. However, very quickly we begin to focus only on Strawberry Crater and leave the rest behind. Finally, we run into a mild but very common problem for beginning writers. This writer has formed a fairly focused and coherent paragraph, but then forced in a bit of information at the end that doesn't quite belong. Notice that the whole paragraph here is about sports, yet right at the end we get one sentence about zoos and water parks. If that information is important for the audience, it deserves a place in the essay, but the writer can't simply force it in at the end of this paragraph that was all about sports. A similar concept to coherence is cohesion, the idea that the sentences in a paragraph all hang together. You could extend this concept and talk about essay cohesion, where each paragraph logically connects to those around it, but here we'll focus on the sentence level. When you're discussing complex ideas, it is particularly important that you make the task of reading as easy as possible. Cohesion creates the feeling that sentences are connected and moves us easily from one to the next, making the ideas as easy to follow as possible. 3 ways to improve cohesion are to repeat your key terms and ideas, to include more sentence connectors and transition language, and to improve the flow of information by starting with familiar concepts and then proceeding to unfamiliar concepts, also called old-new information flow. The writer of this paragraph is trying to discuss black holes, which can be a fairly difficult concept for some people. However, by employing old-new information flow, he moves us smoothly and easily through the topic. Astronomers and physicists are now facing many questions about the nature of the universe, which have been raised by studying black holes in space. A black hole is created by the collapse of a dead star into a point perhaps no larger than a marble. So much matter compressed into so little volume changes the very fabric of space. When space is altered in this way, strange, even surreal effects can occur. Light itself is sucked in by the extreme curvature, and even time travel may be theoretically possible by passing near enough. Notice how the reader starts with this fairly simple, concrete, and familiar idea: astronomers and physicists. Few readers would have trouble picturing these scientists. Then he proceeds to more abstract concepts like the black hole itself. Notice that he ends the first sentence with black holes, and then picks up his second sentence with the same concept, which is now familiar to the reader. The writer then follows this pattern through to the end of the essay, moving from old or already introduced information to new or unfamiliar information. While not every paragraph needs to look like this, the more you employ it, the easier writing will be to understand. This strategy is particularly useful when you're working with complex or abstract concepts, or as a strategy to revise a paragraph that you already know is somewhat unclear. Another important goal in writing is concision, or being concise. This does not mean that the paper must be short, but it does mean you should provide as much information as possible in as few words as you can. In other words, say a lot while only writing a little. For many students, this goal can feel counterintuitive. Students are often pressed for time and feel like they must stretch information to reach the whole page length. However, proficient writers working in the real world know that more often than not they must squeeze information. Supervisors, editors, and reviewers frequently want documents to be as short as possible, and writers must find a way to fit in the necessary and important information. There are several ways to become more concise, simply by cutting out language or replacing it with language that accomplishes the same goals. Some of these strategies include deleting unnecessary or redundant words, reducing bloated expressions, using positive sentences rather than negative sentences, and using active voice rather than passive voice, which is a fairly complex grammatical concept that we'll talk about later in the course. One good way to improve concision is simply to cut unnecessary or redundant words. In the first sentence, words like essentially and even do add a bit of emphasis, but are not really essential to the meaning of the sentence. In the second sentence, words like final outcome and three separate provide the reader the same information, and we don't need both of them. Cutting them will save space and allow you to provide more information down the line. Another good way to cut words is to replace a whole phrase with a single word. Often we call these bloated expressions because they are simply much bigger than they need to be and can easily be replaced with shorter alternatives. Again, if you'd like to go back and look at this list, you can view the slides further on the schedule. Another easy way to save a bit of space is to turn a negative statement into a positive statement. It almost always takes more room to negate something than to say it outright. This may only save a few words at a time, but stretched over 10 pages, this could amount to room for an entire paragraph of added information. The final and most problematic of the 5 C's is correctness. Now, most writing experts would agree that there is not one single correct way to write a paper. What is correct for one context, purpose, genre, or audience may be completely ineffective and distracting for another. However, considering the expectations of your audience is a vital step when writing any document. Often, we discuss this in terms of conventions, how things are normally done in this type of document, in this setting, or among this community. Even within a college or university, different professors may have different expectations or requirements for the work that you submit. So all of these should be followed with a bit of caution. However, some common expectations for college writing include no contractions, like don't or won't. Writing primarily in the third person, so using words like he and she, John, Susie, rather than I or you. Using technical language and avoiding slang or words that sound too informal. Writing in complete academic sentences with standard punctuation. Writing in paragraphs of about 5 to 8 lines at a time. And following the particular style guide like the APA or MLA for formatting the page and formatting your use of sources. Writing is a complex and time-consuming task, and even the best writers struggle, revise, and often worry about their own work. But following these principles of clarity, coherence, cohesion, concision, and correctness can be a great starting place for most kinds of writing.